The results from another round of by-elections are in. We speak to elections analyst Wayne Sussman. Welcome, Wayne.
Hi, Chris. Good to speak to you again.
Before we go to those results and get you to analyze them for us, let's go to Zerist, where gunmen have taken control of a municipal council. What is the backstory there?
Thank you very much, Chris. And I always like to take two steps back. I want to remind the viewers and the listeners that the Ramochere Moiloa municipality is in Zerist. It's part of the same district where the Ditzebotla municipality in Lichtenburg is, which was considered the most dysfunctional municipality in South Africa. So we're now seeing another municipality close by in total chaos and almost total inability to get things done and make decisions here. So we have this strange scenario, which is not unique in South African politics. We know of other examples where there are two seeming mayors of the municipality. There is Dinah Pitso, who was the mayor up until a few months ago and is still seen as the mayor by the ANC in the Northwest leadership. And then there's Mr. Itumuleng Morabi, who has the backing of many in the ANC caucus and some other political parties. And essentially, Mr. Morabi was elected by the mayor a few weeks ago, a few months ago. But this process was criticized heavily by Dinah Pitso, the former mayor, and by the ANC in the Northwest. So much so that there hasn't been a resolution to this matter. There was a meeting in Parliament where they tried to determine how to deal with this going forward. And also this crazy scenario of the rival factions having gunmen in the municipality, gunmen near a council chamber, near the engine of this municipality, is greatly concerning, not just for our democracy, but also for service delivery in South Africa. Armed violence has no place in our council chambers. Violence has no place in a place where service delivery is supposed to be strategized, where services are supposed to be planned. So this is concerning. So it seems the key thing is for Dinah Pitso, the hapless Dinah Pitso, the person who has voted out, is she has the backing of the ANC Northwest leadership. And I think this might help her remain in control. But also just to take another step back. I spoke at the beginning, just to give the context, that this isn't so far from Lichtenburg or Ditzebotla municipality. The Northwest for the ANC is one of the most stable electoral provinces. I was actually going through the numbers just before I came here. Even though the ANC does better in the Eastern Cape than it does in the Northwest, when you look at its fall in support, the fall in support in the Northwest in 2024 was more subdued than it was in the Eastern Cape, i.e. the ANC lost more support in the Eastern Cape than it did in the Northwest. And it is now crucial for the ANC, first of all, to bring back order to this Ramochere Moiloa municipality and also get its house in order across the rest of the Northwest, because otherwise it's going to be a difficult election in a critical province for the ANC next year.
Thank you for giving us the history. Wayne, let's go to last night's election results, please. By-election results.
Sure. Let's start off in the ANC heartland of the town of Kakadu, which is formerly Lady Freya. In the eMalahleni municipality, we have two eMalahleni municipalities in South Africa. This is the one in the Eastern Cape. This is in the former Transkei. The EFF were traditionally the ANC's biggest rival here, but they didn't stand last night, and it was only the ANC versus the PAC, and the ANC won over 90% of the vote. And this is a theme you and I have spoken about a lot over the last few weeks and months, is that in many parts of the Eastern Cape, the ANC support is absolutely rock solid. And there's actually very little to tell here because only two parties on the ballot. But again, this reinforces the point that there are no challenger has yet emerged to take on the ANC in a place like eMalahleni in the former Transkei, and the ANC supporting these homelands in the Eastern Cape particularly remain very, very strong. And we're going to continue that theme and go to the north of the country now to a village called Bogalatkladi, which is on the Chrome Belt in the Sekhukhune area, which I think was in apartheid days, it was the homeland of Leboa. This is a strong Sepedi speaking area. And here again, this was important because you had the ANC, the EFF, and the South African Communist Party. So a few months ago, you and I discussed the South African Communist Party contesting a by-election in Polokwane, which didn't go well. They only registered 1%, 1% of the vote. And let me just go off on a quick tangent. It's very rare for new political parties or new-ish political parties to contest by-elections before a major election. Because if you get found out, all your momentum, all your hype, all your mystique goes away. And here the South African Communist Party decided in a historic ANC stronghold to take on its tripartite alliance partner again. So what happened in this election? Okay, again, the three main parties we're looking at were the ANC, the EFF, and the South African Communist Party. Despite the South African Communist Party running, the ANC grew from 75% to 79% of the vote. So they came very close to that 80% mark. You saw the EFF fall somewhat from 19% to 15%. And the South African Communist Party actually didn't even finish third. There was a party which is active in Limpopo in the Eastern Cape called Defenders of the People. They got 4%. And again, in a model of consistency, the South African Communist Party could only get 1% of the vote. So we see a lot of media attention in South Africa on the South African Communist Party and their prospects in the next election. But here the data shows that in 2 elections, and again, they're in the same province, in Limpopo, they have had no impact whatsoever. So if the South African Communist Party are going to have an impact on our elections, and I'm not ruling it out that in some parts of the country they might do that, they need to go back to the drawing board and choose very carefully where they will next run in an election. So just to close off on this, we have spoken about the Eastern Cape and Limpopo a lot, and that trend continues. That in former homelands, that in the provinces of Limpopo and the Eastern Cape, the ANC support is absolutely rock solid. Now, there was one other by-election yesterday, Chris, and that was in the town of Douglas, which is the confluence, or right by the confluence of the Orange and Vaal River in the Northern Cape in the Siankuma municipality. An independent candidate won the seat in 2021. He actually ended up becoming the mayor, horse breeder, farmer, well-known in the area. He sadly passed away. And the DA were favored to win this ward. They did win the seat. And, you know, I'm someone who focuses very much on the data, but not everyone, thankfully for their mental health, focuses on the minutiae of politics like I do. And I think this is a morale-boosting victory for the Democratic Alliance because the Northern Cape was the province where they fared worst relative to what they did in 2019. So, i.e., the province where they went backwards the most in 2024. They've struggled in by-elections, and here they have won a by-election, won a seat back, and they'll be happy with it. But when one breaks down the data, now I'm going back to the minutiae, Chris, my apologies. This was quite a diverse ward. It had a number of Xhosa-speaking voters, colored voters, and certainly white Afrikaans voters. Amongst white Afrikaans voters, the DA's vote was totally rock solid. But what I think will concern the DA a bit is if I look at the voting districts in the ward, the white Afrikaans part of the ward has traditionally had the highest turnout. Voters have been enthused to vote there. And what was interesting yesterday, it didn't have the highest voted turnout. This is the area of Bongani, which is more diverse, colored voters, Xhosa voters, that had a higher turnout. And I think the DA will go back and say, did we miss a trick here that we weren't able to turn out our base? They did still win the ward. They'll be very, very happy. And in that ward of Bongani, in that area of Bongani, you saw the PA make an impact. They won 10% of the vote there. They'll be happy with it because they've been very weak in Douglas. However, it's not the same impact you and I have been seeing week in, week out. So yes, the Patriotic Alliance will be happy, they'll be satisfied, but it's not the same major splash. But they do have a foothold, and the ANC will be happy with its returns in Bongani area. So in a way, the Douglas election has something which those three parties can all take something about. So just to round it off, ANC solid holds in the Eastern Cape and Limpopo, and the DA winning a seat back in Douglas in the Northern Cape.
Thank you, Wayne. May I also ask you for the highlights of the previous round of by-elections, because we never had a chance to talk about that.
Wow, a week is a long time in politics. I think a few weeks ago, we had by-elections in the Eastern Cape. I need to jog my memory quickly, Chris, but I want to look forward to next week quickly, and then I'm going to come back to last week, if I may.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So essentially, what we saw next week is going to be absolutely critical. We are going to see a by-election in Soweto Township, in Mdeni, which is a more of a Zulu-speaking area, Chris. That's one part of the ward, and then the other part of the ward is going to be in the area of Naledi, which is more Sesotho-speaking and Setswana-speaking. This is in 2016, there have been slight border modifications. The ANC won 80% of the vote here. In the 2024 election, because of the emergence of Mkhonto Sizwe, the ANC won just over 40% of the vote. So you're going to see the ANC versus the MK versus the EFF versus Action SA. Action SA historically strong here. That is going to be an absolute barnstorming by-election next week. And we're also going to see another interesting by-election in the Eastern Cape, ANC versus PA versus the DA in the Langkloof area. So I hope you'll have me back. And I have jogged my memory, Chris. We had some fascinating by-elections on the 20th of August, which does really feel like a lifetime ago. This year is flying so fast. So on the one hand, in Knysna, and when as you know, I look at things the finest of fine-tooth combs, there were three interesting by-elections, and the one I thought, wait a minute, I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't think much is going to happen. This is a historic ANC stronghold in the area of Knysna. You saw the ANC get a major fright in one of their strongholds in an area called Damsabos, where the Patriotic Alliance came extremely close in a ward which is historically black, Xhosa-speaking black ward with a small switching of colored voters. The PA almost upset the ANC. It would have been a major, major upset. So that was very interesting for Knysna, and I think would have really lifted the Patriotic Alliance. So I just want to give that data. The ANC won 50% of the vote, down from just under 70%, and the Patriotic Alliance went up from 8% to 48% of the vote. That is an astonishing rise, and you just saw a major swing. I want to give, again, I'd love drilling down to these voting districts. Just follow me for a second. In 2024, okay, this was 20th of August, this was when these by-elections were. It was about 13, 14 months after the election. In 2024, in the Chris Hani Hall, the ANC beat the Patriotic Alliance by 356 votes. On the 20th of August, the Patriotic Alliance in the same voting district beat the ANC by 358 votes. I want to give that data again. The PA in May 2024 lost to the ANC by 356 votes, the Chris Hani Hall. 14 months later, the PA beat the ANC by 358 votes. We do not often see swings like that in politics. Then in the Eastern Cape, Chris, the ANC held a ward in Southernwood in Tata, in the King Sabata Dalindyebo municipality, one of the most populous municipalities in the Eastern Cape. This is real Tata heartland. The ANC will be delighted And that again reinforces what we started today's conversation with, that in many parts of the Eastern Cape, certainly the homeland, here's another example, the ANC support going up from 41% to 44%. And essentially, there was an independent who came second, and the EFF also had some growth with the United Democratic Movement going backwards. And finally, there was quite a diverse ward in the town of Van Reinsdorp in on the west coast. And I hope many of the business viewers are in Van Reinsdorp listening to you for the flower season. It's the best time of the year to be there. You saw the DA hold award, but they fell from 62% to 43%. And the PA again, up from 6% to 37%. So yes, the DA lost support, Chris, but the ANC support halved. And this is something which I've been saying whenever you've had me on. People focus on the PA hurting the DA, but what we are seeing is that the PA continues to also do a lot of damage to the ANC amongst its coloured voter base. And this should concern not just the DA, but the ANC greatly. And I want to give those numbers: 43% down from 62% for the DA, the PA up from 6% to 37%, and the ANC support essentially halving from 31% to 16%. So the DA, the reason why it won in Van Reinsdorp was because of the town centre. It got many of the people who live in the town of Van Reinsdorp out for it. So, Chris, you had to. I'm glad you jogged my memory. It has come back now. And again, what we've discussed in all these results, often these themes are continuing, and that's why these conversations are important, because we're seeing trends emerge on the road to the 2026 or early 2027 local government election.
Fascinating, Wayne. Now, many people are so focused on national and provincial politics that they don't pick up these trends in by elections. Also, they don't realize how deadly municipal politics can be. Um, at least 148 municipal officials have been murdered since 2018.
Chris, and again, we go to the detail. Last night, in the ANC stronghold of the Malasheni municipality in the town of Kakadu, the reason for the by-election was the chief whip and the ward councillor was assassinated in his home. Next week, the reason why we have a by-election in Soweto is because the ward councillor there was assassinated by gunmen in his home. These are two by-elections within the space of 7 days. And this is why I always focus on the reason of these by-elections, because it tells the story of South Africa often, that so many of our elected officials pay the ultimate price for trying to serve the community which elected them. And we are likely to see a pickup in this on the road to the local government election, because members of there are many, just take the ANC, there are many people who care deeply about the ANC and know that they will probably never be a member of parliament or a member of the provincial legislature. A ward councillor or a proportional councillor, but certainly a ward councillor, is a stable job for relatively stable job. It's a hard job for a 5-year period. It's a middle class job, often in a rural and or poor area for 5 years. It can change and transform someone's life. If you believe you deserve that job, but you don't get it, we know of cases where people resort to literally killing their opponents. We are now seeing another by-election next week. I'm very concerned that in the lead up to the next election, when it comes to choosing candidates, there's going to be an uptick in violence. And I hope not too many lives are lost and people hurt or injured.
Thank you. That was elections analyst Wayne Sussman speaking to Biz News, and I'm Chris Steyn. Thank you, Wayne.